Living on Half a Dime a Day, subtitled How a Lady, Having Lost a Sufficient Income from Government Bonds by Misplaced Confidence, reduced to a little homestead whose entire income is but $40 per annum, resolved to hold it, incurring no debts, and live within it. How she has lived for 3 years and still lives on half a dime a day. By Sarah Elizabeth Harper Monmouth. Section 1. Prefatory. This tale is a faithful narrative of facts by a woman educated, reared in abundance, and left with a competence which she used freely for benevolent purposes, but whose property was ruthlessly destroyed, and she left sick, crippled, with impending blindness, and no friends to look to for support. It was prepared for a lecture, but illness rendered its delivery impossible. It is printed at the suggestion of friends. Half a dime a day. You will hardly dissent if I say it would be easier to tell you how to die on 5 cents a day than how to live on that sum. Perhaps I should say exist rather than live. It is keeping soul and body together on a small annuity, and I may say in the outset that to live on half a dime a day will prove an infallible anti-fat remedy. All the patent bottles advertised to prevent obesity will have to point heads down and beat a retreat to Coventry before this bill of fare. But I must admit that 5 cents as a rule only buys the food of a day, and other things than victuals are needed to enable a person to support life. There must be a place to live in, certainly. There must be clothing and fire in cold weather. I had an old house and some land. I got $20 for grass, $12 for pasturing. In good years, $3 for apples. There was no work I could do owing to a crippled arm and blinded eye, save knitting and making mock flowers. The utmost I could ever earn in a year was $15. Here then was exactly $50, from which 10 must be deducted for taxes. With the remaining 40, I was not only to make both ends meet, but all ends meet, and twist into a neatly knotted skein as my frugal gift to each succeeding New Year. 3 years my offering has been made. I have got round on the $40. It has been accomplished through contrivance, self-denial, and arithmetic. You have heard of the man who awoke one morning and found himself famous. I awoke one morning and found myself poor, so sudden as that. Or I don't know as I can say I awoke. I was like one in a dazed dream for months, an awful dream in which a frightful incubus stretched itself across my gasping life and paralyzed me with cold, clammy terror. I was as one stunned and knew not what to do. There was an old roof above me, dearer than life. To sell or mortgage it seemed like disgracing myself in the eyes of the world and dishonoring my ancestors. But I had not $1 of money left, and I had no health. Thus there was no work to which I could turn to earn a living. You have heard of people living by their wits. I was at my wits' end how to live. Why didn't I let my place on shares? I was too wise, thank you. I had tried that twice too many times in former years. For the same reason, I did not take a family into the house. In that country place, I could not have got rent enough to pay for the damages done the buildings, nor could I have borne the unavoidable noise and annoyance of a family in my ill health and nervous debility. So there were $40 per annum I could reasonably count on. At the prospect, my stomach began to fall into a collapsed state. 20 of this 40 I must spend for food, I thought. But the purpose was hardly fledged before war to the teeth was declared. It shall never be, said the mind. I care nothing about your old body. It must go to dust soon, anyway. You must understand I shan't starve, and I shan't eat trash either. I have always had the best, and the best I must have still. Understand, once for all, that I rule, and make your plans accordingly." Thus mine stepped to the front with a bold standard displayed, and it was for me to quietly recognize its position. I would live on $17 and save $3 to continue my first-class weekly, Christian Union, with its unrivaled editorials and Christian instruction. There was still the other half of the $40 unappropriated. I sorely wanted to take enough from it to supply me with 2 of the best magazines. I, however, ventured on but one, thinking there would be 2 or 3 books in the course of the year I should feel as if I must have. "What expensive tastes!" one and another will exclaim. Ah, people differ in their ideas as to what is and what is not expensive. To pamper the body and famish the mind I should deem the most ruinous and wicked extravagance, and a so-called cheap newspaper, which deals in the abominations of society and dumps the filth of the world at your door every week, would have been a far too expensive investment for me. I could afford no such luxury. $17 of my $40 I assigned to supply food, $10 for reading, leaving $13 for fuel. I fortunately had enough wood on hand when the great loss befell to last 2/3 through a winter. The next one I got through with 1 cord, and sawed it myself, which saved $1.50. I could only with my disabled arm worry off a few sticks for my fire each day. In very cold spells I took a warm freestone and crawled into bed. I was too ill to work, and thus to do saved firewood. I would put mittens on my hands and read a while, and when the room became too cold for this, cover all up and think over what I had read. This saved me in a degree from enervating myself further by fruitless poring over poverty and privations. I had enough bedclothes for comfort, but my own wardrobe, with the exception of 1 black suit, was pretty low when the loss came. I never bought a dress or pair of shoes for more than 3 years. It was entirely beyond my means to buy any article of clothing. So I had to tax both ingenuity and industry to get together garments enough for comfort and decency. I had a palm-figured dressing gown, lined with purplish flannel. The outside of this was all in tatters, while the lining was good. I ripped it in pieces, washed and pressed the flannel, got out enough of the palm figures to make 3 bands around the skirt and sleeves. These helped to hide holes and faded spots in the flannel. Then I raveled an old scarlet worsted undersleeve and trimmed each band with a narrow fluted edge. So I had a quite dressy dressing gown, clean, whole, almost tasteful, and I took genuine comfort planning, piecing it out day after day with half mittens on my cold hands sitting close to a cold fire. I was more than a week about it, for owing to shortness of firewood my days were very short, and my lame hand was very decrepit and painful. I recollected that when I had made this wrapper out of an abundance of nice new materials, I had been quite impatient at having to sew on it for 2 days, and called in help to finish it off.